You're listening to the AmWritingFantasy Podcast. In today's publishing landscape, you can reach fans all over the world. Query letters are a thing of the past. You don't even need a literary agent. There is nothing standing in the way of making a living from writing. Join two best-selling authors who have self-published more than 20 books between them. Now, on to the show with your hosts, Autumn Burt and Jesper Schmidt.
Hello, I am Jesper.
And I'm Autumn.
This is episode 41 of the AmWritingFantasy Podcast, and we are going to talk about ISBN numbers. I almost stumbled saying that. ISBN numbers, and whether you should buy your own ISBN numbers or if you should use free ones. So, yeah, we'll get into explaining all the details about what ISBN numbers are and all that. But I think, can I first say that I actually had a very busy weekend here because my oldest son had his birthday this weekend. He turned 11.
Oh, wow, that's fun. Oh, he's almost a teen. It's coming up.
Yeah, so that's the bad part, I guess. Yeah, but we had the house full of guests,
Wow.
that was great. We had great fun and it was nice. And my brother and his fiance came already on Friday, and then they stayed all weekend.
Oh, fun.
And then the other guests came on Saturday, and then. Yeah, some of them, of course, left in the middle of the night, and Sunday morning, my brother and his fiance had to go to, because they're picking up a dog, so they had to drive to pick up a dog. So I had to get up early to make breakfast for them and all that. So I was really, really tired on Sunday.
There's something about a group of kids, especially 11 years old, with all that energy that can really make you feel tired, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, when you have to wait on your guest for like 2 full days, well, I don't know. For me, I actually think some people enjoy doing that. And I do enjoy the company and all that. But waiting on people is sort of not maybe my favorite activity. But of course, you do it anyway. So,
Yeah,
it was very nice.
Oh, that sounds really good. House full of families. Definitely fun, but I'm like you, where my parents, we were just visiting with them, and sometimes it's like, oh, you're having a party. I will be in the basement. I need to. That's a lot of their friends. All their friends are, they're super nice to us, and they often half their kids, are mostly my age. So sometimes the kids tag along, and it's great, but it can be so overwhelming. And after so much time of it, I'm like, I need to go to the woods a little while and just everybody to meditate.
That was also why when it came to Sunday, we just decided I'm going to relax on the couch and basically do nothing. So actually, we decided to watch the first episode of Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance with the kids.
Awesome.
And I believe you told me that you watched it too, didn't you?
Yes, I've only watched the first one. Giving it a try out. I think I have to watch a second one, but it's. What did you think of it?
No, but I think, first of all, my wife noticed that it's in fact a prequel to the 1982 Jim Henson film, The Dark Crystal. So that was quite interesting to me. But I think I would say that if I wasn't watching it with the kids, I probably wouldn't watch it, to be honest. I think it was okay, but there is quite some info dumping going on. Like you can almost tell that that's because they want to make sure that the younger audience understands what's happening and all that. Whereas as an adult watching that, that's a bit like, okay, yeah, you could probably do that a bit better.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's fine. But I don't think I would be watching it on my own, to be honest.
Yeah, that's how we both felt after watching the first one. Is I want to get beyond the info dumping, which, again, they're building the world that existed before the original movie, so there's a lot of information to share. But the puppets just didn't work for me, and the lack of facial expressions, how far CGI has come, and what they could have done instead of the puppets. Not that I don't want to diss traditional, because I love Brian Froud. He's one of my favorite artists, and he created all of those puppets and the styles and the costumes. But I would have actually preferred it as CGI if they digitized all the puppets and then created expressions and things. The voices and actions alone just didn't do it for me. But I want to watch one more so I get past all the info dumping and see if I get swept up in the story, because I know a lot of other authors and a lot of people I've talked to really have. But it's not there for me yet, so I might watch one more, and otherwise, I'm back at Lucifer, so totally different
Lucifer
side.
thing. Yeah,
Really
I still hate it.
It gets better, I swear.
But I actually, to be honest, I think it's quite cool that it's puppets. Because it's different compared to what you're used to seeing, and puppets nowadays it's pretty rare.
It is rare.
So I thought that's actually cool. I mean, I get your point, and I can certainly agree that the fact that you can't see face mimics, it's a bit, let's say, weird, because we're not used to that. But I still think it's quite cool.
Yeah, I'll have to, like I said, I want to give it another try or two and see if I can get into it. But the first one didn't catch my interest, so we'll see.
Yeah.
So this week I've actually been doing a lot of reflecting, because the 19th would have been my brother's, I can't believe it's 51st birthday. So he was 4.5 years older than me. He actually passed away in 2000. Oddly enough, the day I met my husband. Of course, he was just a guy I met. So I've been thinking about that a lot. Sometimes I don't think about his birthday until like afterwards, but this year I just was visiting my mom and it's been in my mind. And I've just been reflecting about how much, not only did he miss, because he actually chose to take his own life, but how much that event changed me, besides the fact I obviously met my husband that same day as well. But I, believe it or not, because you've only known me, the past, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years, Jesper. But you've probably known me as, a risk taker. You've known me. I quit my job, my full-time job, on the 2-week notice to go travel the world. And, I've done some crazy things, but I was always the steady rock who never took risks in high school, was very quiet and antisocial. And I realized how much, when you realize that life is short, my brother was only 30 when he passed away. I was 25. And how much, just realizing that, life changes. There's so much out there. What are you afraid of trying something scary for? Leaving my last job where I wasn't happy to go explore and travel across the United States. I mean, what's going to happen? I might fail. I might have a blast. I might do both. I just realized that it really did change me into much more of a risk taker, which is oddly what my brother was. So I think we actually would have gotten along. We fought like cats and dogs as kids, as teenagers. So I honestly think we would have gotten along so much better. But it also, I've talked it before that, August has been a really kind of crazy, it was a crazy month. It's still kind of, this 2019, I've said it 100 times, I cannot wait till this year ends. But I also think that every time that, things get bad, I still can't imagine making that choice. And I think about all the things my brother missed. His youngest daughter is, working on her associate's degree. His oldest son has graduated college and has an awesome job as a computer engineer. His middle son, the youngest son actually, is in the Air Force and re-upping to another role, another 4 or 5, 6 years with them. It's just, and his other daughter, his oldest daughter, actually has a daughter. And it's just like, wow, life changes no matter what. When you have a bad day and you're frustrated and everything else that's going on, I just still can't imagine making that choice and not sticking out to see what's going to happen next. So it's been such a reflective week for me, I guess. I'm sitting alone in the Adirondacks because my husband's away at a training, and this is obviously, I need his distraction because my mind is on very deep thoughts.
Yeah, I can hear that. Do you think it was because you were at your parents' place? Was that why you started thinking about it, or why do you think you all of a sudden started to have these reflections?
Probably. I think it was there. We were talking about my mom seemed a little sad, and with my nephew who lives with them, and we were trying to figure out why, and it just dawned on me. I'm like, it's September. It's my brother's birthday coming up, and she always gets sad this time of year. And everyone's just kind of paused. And so I think, that's what was kind of, when I figured that out, like I said, I usually think of it after the fact because life is so busy. But this year I've got some quiet time. And like I said, it's been a hard year, but so it's just on my mind, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know it doesn't work like this, but I wish I could tell people thinking about, taking their own life to think ahead. It's especially if you're rather young, and here I'm also talking about people maybe 50 or whatever, right? I mean, you have so many years to go, and it's just, and who knows what's going to happen in 10 years. Maybe something awesome will happen and you will be so sad that you ended it before it happened or whatever. It's hard to know, but I know it doesn't work like this because my wife works on a suicide hotline as well, so she talks to these people on the phone. So I know it's not like you can just tell them you should be feeling better because later on it'll be better. It doesn't work like that, but I just wish it would, to be honest.
I agree. I felt at the time, I was 25, he was 30, that he thought everything was over at 30. And when I hit 30, it was really kind of like, man, I feel like a kid and I don't know what's going on. I can't imagine how my brother felt like everything was over at 30. And now I'm 45 and, sometimes I feel it in my bones, but I still mentally am like 20 something. And I know talking to my parents, they keep telling me don't get old. And of course they're in their 70s. And I know mentally they think they're in their 30s and 20s. I don't think, our minds stay at this active, healthy level, and our bodies are the ones that let us down. I just can't imagine feeling like mentally I'm done. I just can't get there. I'll just create a new world and write another book and get lost in it. I think that's my answer to everything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we're gonna get on from this. This was like this is like a topic one shouldn't start a podcast with because now we can't get anywhere else. Oh my God. Well, I understand why you might be thinking about those things. That's certainly not. It's not easy.
A week on the internet with the Writing Fantasy Podcast.
Okay, well, Autumn, we have to try to move on to something else.
I am ready to move on, actually, because, like I said, it's actually in its own way empowering to me because I have a low bar that is so low that, I can't reach it. So I know things are going to get better no matter what happens.
Perfect. At least on a more happy note, if we can go there. We've had so many comments coming in on Patreon from both Sade and Irish. And guys, please keep it going. It's awesome to read your notes and comments on some of. Well, you actually I think both of you actually started your own thread and just to share some info. And you're also busy commenting on podcast episodes and whatnot. So that's great. And please keep that going. And well, for the rest of you, if you want to check out Patreon, then there is a link in the show notes. So you go over there and check it out. Yeah, we do give you a ton of rewards if you join us there.
Absolutely. And it's been so much fun with all the commenting. So it's been, it makes it really engaging, and that's kind of fun. And I actually wanted to bring up another place that I found engaging. You know this, Jesper, that I'm not the biggest fan of Facebook. I might have mentioned that to you before.
Well, it might have come up just like once or twice, maybe.
So kind. I think it's like every email when we have to do something on Facebook. But, it's where so much connection is going. Well, it's so funny because another author that I really admire Angela Ford. She's part of a group, and she's a brilliant designer and really good with computers. And she and a friend created a new app called Indie Author Lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And it's a new forum, really, really fun forum, actually, for authors. And so I've been on there, and it's funny because the intro question I thought was really funny that she, you join and you get a question right away to get you thinking. It's what's your biggest struggle when it comes to self-publishing? And it's been really fun reading all the comments about, some of it's just working on getting editing done on a tight budget, marketing and sales, motivation, motivating myself to edit, and tuning out distractions. So actually, I've been having way more fun. I know I really need to get back into our own Facebook group because the comments there are awesome. But if there happens to be anyone else out there like me who kind of feels your skin crawl just a little bit when you get on Facebook, hey, check out Indie Author Lifestyle, because it's been, in just a few days that I've been part of it, it's been a huge, vibrant community and very chatty, very easy to get into. Unlike Facebook, and it's not stealing all my data. Yay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's a good question that they're asking there, because you can get a myriad of different answers to that question, because everybody will, well, of course, a lot will share, but there's going to be a very many variations on what people struggling with.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a good starting question. But actually, I have to say that in the AmWritingFantasy Facebook group, just today alone, I approved 11 new joiners.
Oh my goodness.
So that's awesome. And the last few days, there's been a lot of people joining, so that's really great. And I can see a lot of comments going on, a lot of threads getting started, people asking questions and other people's replying. So it is in fact quite a good community that's going on there, even for those who doesn't like Facebook.
It is. I enjoy it whenever I get on there, and I love seeing some of the comments. I know recently, even I think it was Zane, somebody Irish, one of them was mentioning even how great the AmWritingFantasy Facebook group is. So I have to admit, it is also its own vibrant community. So I need to get back in there too, especially when you're approving 11, and I haven't even been in there yet today. So oops.
Yeah. Well, we are several people doing this, so
Yes.
that's it works out. But it's good, because it feels to me like, and maybe I'm going to regret saying this at some point if it turns out that I'm not right. But maybe we've sort of passed a critical mass of people now, because it feels like there is a lot more activity than there used to be just like a year ago.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of people in there. I think we are getting close to 1,300 people in the group. So that's pretty good.
That is awesome.
And of course, if you listening are interested in joining a group of fantasy authors, just sharing stuff about writing or marketing or whatever it may be, basically more or less you can post everything in there, and people will jump on it and reply and give you their thoughts. So you can just search for AmWritingFantasy in the group section of Facebook, and then you will find us, and just put in your request to join and we will approve you.
Sounds
quite
good
easy
to me.
And on to today's topic.
ISBN numbers.
Oh, that's right.
It sounds complicated, Autumn.
Well, it is in so many ways. At least it feels like a little bit. It's to me almost a throwback to the real traditional publishing days. And so there's a lot of kind of misunderstandings in the indie publishing world about what an ISBN number is, and do you need it, and why are they so gosh darn expensive? I mean, talk about one of your biggest hurdles to self-publishing. I'm surprised somebody hasn't actually written down having to buy ISBN numbers.
Oh, yeah, true. But maybe if I just set us up a bit here with a short definition thing, just so that everybody's on the same page, and then I think you can lead us into it, because I know that you have researched this a lot more than I have. But as usual, I have opinions about everything, so I can still share opinions. But maybe just so to put everybody on the same page here, so everybody knows what we're talking about. So
sounds good.
ISBN stands for International Standard Book Number. And basically, the ISBN number is a way to, identify books, I guess you could say. And an ISBN is assigned to each separate edition and variation of a publication. So this could, for example, be a paperback, and then if you have a hardcover edition of the same book, then, for example, those two will have different ISBN numbers. And getting ISBN numbers assigned, that is handled by each country separately. So essentially what that means is that each country has their own ISBN agency that is responsible for assigning ISBN numbers for that country or territory. So it doesn't matter what language your publication is in. So for example, if I want to get a ISBN number here in Denmark, even though I'm writing in English, I still have to buy it from the Danish agency. So I think that's the definitions out of the way, and hopefully that puts us on the same page about what we're talking about here.
Yes, that's a really good introduction. I mean, I remember the first time I heard about ISBN numbers. I mean, I had volunteered and worked the library in my high school and really hung out at the library a lot in college. And I thought I knew everything like the Dewey Decimal System and, but then I had picked up a book in England that a friend desperately wanted. But of course, it was an English copy and blah, blah, blah. And finally, we figured out we just needed to search by the ISBN number. And then she could find it and order it. And of course, that was the dark days of like 1996. So the internet was not quite as good as it is now. And Amazon book search didn't exist back then. But that's when I realized that ISBN numbers, those little numbers in the front of a book, actually mean something. And there's some really complicated parts. I mean, they actually kind of tell you a lot of information about, all written in like, numeric, about what it actually means. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So these days there is an ISBN search, so that makes it really easy to go and look for things. So if you have an ISBN number, you can just go ahead and put it into a search and find your book. But some of those, I know there's a lot of misinformation out there about what the ISBN number says. And it's, some people say if you get a free one, because that's really the topic today, is do you actually need to go buy an ISBN number? Or can you use Amazon? When you do ebooks on Amazon, you don't need one. You use an ASIN number, which is an Amazon number. And it's just good for the Amazon web stores. And then if you go through KTP to print a paperback, or like I do a lot of stuff on Smashwords, but I know Drafted Digital as well. These other places will give you a free ISBN number. And so why wouldn't you use the free one versus going and buying one? Why is there a difference? I know there's people on both sides of this fence.
That's what I'm wondering too. Yeah. So I'm looking forward for you to tell me why I should buy one.
Oh, I'll see if I can change your mind. It'll be hard because I'm actually playing the devil's advocate, because I've actually always used the free one too. But as you know, I've learned to question everything. I used to just do what I was told, and then big events happened in my life, and now I don't believe a word anyone says until I go and look it up myself. I must be...
Well, that's a healthy attitude, to be honest.
I think so. I mean, thank goodness I did this as a teenager. My parents would have gone gray so fast. I was such a good kid. But, so I'm going to, it's going to be interesting because there are some information in there. Like I said, there's some misinformation, but I do use a free one too. And I know you do as well, because we've talked about this a lot. So there's a couple of neat things. So there's some stuff in there that tells you what language the book is published in. And you can also find out what country it's for. There's some things that represent the title of the book. So that becomes a special unit of numbers as well. There's a check digit, which is kind of like your credit card. There's always a check digit that they all kind of add up to or work to this one number, or they know it's a fake. And there's something in there that tells you who the publisher is. So that's sort of the only sticking point I can see between, or at least in this example, there are other sticking points, but the example of why you would or would not buy an ISBN. So if I use a free one from Amazon for my paperback book, it's going to say Amazon's the publisher. If I'm a publisher, or I wanted to say that I published my book, if I buy one, it will say that. So written there in almost like a meta tag for a website, it says who is the owner of the book, or at least that copy of the book. So there is that. I don't know what you think about, how important do you think it is to be able to say that you, Jesper Schmidt, created and made this book, all the way down to owning this little digital number? Or do you care that it says, Amazon or Kobo or one of these other places is the digital publisher of your book?
No, well, I'll see if you can change my mind, but but my point of view is basically that I could not care less, and basically here's why. What I care about is selling books, and I don't know of anybody, being readers, who goes on to, for example, Amazon, and start typing in a publisher's names to figure out. I mean, disregard that this is self-publishing. So just say you have published your book with Random House, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of anybody who goes on to Amazon to search, I wonder which book, I want a Random House book today, and then start. I mean, nobody does that. So, in this case, then, because I always use the free Amazon ISBN numbers, then of course it will say that Amazon is the publisher, but I don't see that it makes any difference whatsoever in terms of selling books or acquiring readers. I simply don't see it.
I don't disagree with you. That's what's so hard about this conversation is I read the same thing, and I double checked before I looked at the price tag of a single ISBN at $125. I mean, obviously, if you're going to do this, there are ways of buying them in bulk of 10 or 100, and considering you need one for every single different edition. So if you have an audiobook, an ebook, and sometimes it's even by retailer. So you can have different numbers. So if you're going to publish, if you're going to need one, you're probably going to need at least 3 or 4 for the exact same book, but in different formats. So, and you have to realize sometimes that can be Mobi file for Kindle versus an EPUB file. Some places are really specific. So that's the only other reason I've heard people complain about, having these ISBNs. If you don't own it, if you own it, you can say when you submit your book to a place saying, this is the EPUB file, it goes with this ISBN, or this is the ebook file, it goes with this ISBN. So you only have one for your ebook, one for your paperback, and one for your audiobook. Where if you're doing sort of like what I'm doing, I'm going through a distributor. So I have my Amazon one, the Amazon paperback one, and then I go through Smashwords and they give me an ISBN for all of those, but it's actually the exact same ebook file as the one that's in Amazon that has a different ISBN number. So suddenly it's like I'm having, where thank goodness I didn't have to pay for these. I might have 5, 6, 7, 8 different ISBN numbers that point back to the exact same book. So some people say that looks so unprofessional. I think those might be the companies that are selling ISBN numbers, but I'm not sure.
No, but that's also what I'm wondering, because unprofessional in what way? I mean, I can understand if you are a traditional publishing house, then you are using your ISBN. Well, I'm going a bit on assumptions here, but I'm assuming at least that they are using the ISBN numbers to track their global sales and all that stuff. And they can probably split it out on territory depending on the country indicator inside the ISBN numbers and whatnot. So they can use it to check their sales. And if I'm not mistaken as well, if you, for example, if you're talking about counting paperback sales or hardcover sales towards something like the New York best time seller list or whatever it's called. What is it called now?
Yeah, the USA Today bestseller list, or the New York Times.
Yeah, exactly. If you need to count your paperback and hardcover sales towards that, I think you have to have a dedicated ISBN number. So everything that is just an Amazon ISBN number, I don't think that gets counted. So that's another thing, but I'm going a bit off memory here, but that's how I remember that it works.
That does make sense, and I could see that being a key point. I would love to. I know a couple people who put together some paperbacks, or not paperbacks, but bundles to make a run for the New York Times bestseller list. And if I thought about it, I should send them an email and say, hey, when you do this, do you just do the Amazon ASIN, or do you actually go and buy an ISBN so that New York Times can track it? That might be a good question to ask someone and come circle back around to this one of these days.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't like those bestseller lists because you can game them, and then there's also some booksellers that gets counted, or some bookstores that gets counted in terms of sales, and then there's others that don't. Mm-hmm. So I have heard stories of authors figuring out which bookstores actually have the sales counted towards the bestseller list, and then get them to buy a ton of books with the agreement that you're going to buy them back afterwards.
Oh my goodness!
So they buy a ton of books. It gets counted. I think that was how it worked. But anyway, somebody can prove me wrong here if I'm misunderstanding something. But how I remember it working was that you could sort of make some deals with those books sales companies or bookstores, and then basically got a lot of sales counted towards the bestseller list. And yeah, there is articles on the internet, by the way, if you're interested, dear listener. Try to search for gaming New York Times bestseller list, and then you'll find some stuff. But it is possible to game the system, and that's why I don't really. That's why I like something like the Amazon bestseller list. I like a lot more because it is just based on sales. It's just based on what people buy, and there is nothing else to it. You cannot game it. You cannot get around it. If you don't sell any books, you're not on the list. It's that easy. Whereas, for example, when we're talking about ISBN numbers, for example, if you don't have the ISBN number yourself and it doesn't get counted, you could be selling like $1 million worth of books and never hit the list, right? So to me, then there's something wrong with the bestseller list if it only counts a portion of the market.
And not to be jaded being in the United States of America, but everything's for sale here. So of course you can game the system to get to the New York Times bestseller list in the USA Today. I mean, I've seen people, usually the buy-in for a bundle that's going to make a run at it is about $1,000. So for $1,000, you can get together with one of these author groups that usually has about 20 authors. They put all that money into marketing and whatever else they have to do. And boom, you get to put USA Today or New York Times bestseller after your name once you hit the list. And, that's great. But I have to say, every single bit of research I've done and looked at, all the readers don't care. They don't care if you have a good book. I mean, yeah, great. You can put USA Today or you can put Amazon bestseller. That's all fantastic. You can put that after your name. But did you write a good book? That's usually what readers are looking at before they pick up your book. So I try not to take it. It's whether or not you have a PhD after your name. It makes the author feel better. Maybe it gives you that confidence boost that is worth $1,000 to go for. But I haven't bought into one of those, so we'll see. I guess maybe I'm jaded that way. But another thing that I've heard about ISBNs, and this one's, I think I've already worked my way around to not believing it, but you have to tell me what you think of this at a face value. As supposedly libraries are becoming more important to the distribution of ebooks. And Overdrive is the largest supplier to schools and libraries in the world, and they circulate more than 105 million ebooks in just 2014. But they also supply to retail stores and everything else. And what's required for Overdrive is an ISBN. So, you need to have an ISBN to be part of Overdrive. But do you think having a free ISBN is somehow holding you back from being recognized in libraries?
Well, let's back a bit up here. I think we need to be really careful with 2014 numbers because 2019 markets are massively different than 2014 ones. And if we're looking at something like, if you want your paperback or hardcover in the library, then I think it still holds true that you need the ISBN number. You for example, and I know you do that too, Autumn. We have print on demand via Amazon, right? And those books does not get into the library. But when you are distributing wide, and especially with ebooks, which is still growing in terms of from a library perspective, if you are publishing via draft to digital and use those as your distributor, they actually have several different I don't know if you call them funnels or whatever, but they have several different agreements, let's put it like that, with libraries. So it's quite easy, to be honest, when you then publish your ebook via draft to digital, you just sort of put a tick in those boxes to say, yeah, I want to also distribute to these places. And those ones will put your book available, at least to the library. But I have to say as well that this doesn't mean that you'll start seeing a ton of people borrowing your books, because it's the same environment as it is on Amazon. There's a lot of books available, and it's not like people in the library, all of a sudden your book will just start appearing in front of them and you will earn a ton of money from people borrowing. It's not happening. At the end of the day, we're back to what we have said so many times before. The money is in the email list, and that's what you need to build. All this extra stuff is nice, fluffy stuff to get your ebook into the library. But unless you're actively pushing for it, maybe telling people that, oh, by the way, do you know you can get my book at your library if you just go and search for the ebook, or if you go and ask for it, and whatnot. If you don't actively drive it that way yourself, it's not going to make any difference. It's just going to be like selling books on Amazon. I mean, you can upload it to Amazon, but it doesn't sell on its own.
That's very true. And you're right, even Smashwords, and that's why I kind of saw through that one, was the date on the facts for it, but also Smashwords does distribute to Overdrive, and it has some deals with libraries. So yeah. I think when I set up a lot of my distribution with Smashwords, I actually put all my books to libraries even cheaper, which I didn't realize most book publishers actually send out to libraries for like $60 or $70. The big publishing houses, that's how much they're making it, $60 or $70 for a certain period for their book to be licensed to libraries. I'm like, man, I think I did 99 cents. So obviously, but again, it's also to get your name out there. And I've been reading about some tactics if you want to have your book distributed more in libraries, like, how to send letters, or, I travel around and I use a lot of libraries. Thank you for free internet. I love the libraries in the United States and Canada. Oh my, Canada ones actually let you have drinks in them. Oh my gosh, that is like heathen in the United States to actually carry a drink into a library. I love Canada. But all you have to do is like go up there and tell them, hey, I'm an author and my books are available and they're really well rated. And hey, if you go here, you can get a free, it's only 90 cents, or you can get a free one for the library. Just let me know and I'll happily give you a digital copy. And you can, work it out. If you're an author and you have a local library and you have not stopped in to tell them you're an author and you're a local author and give them an ebook, please just go do it. You'll be so excited. It feels good to at least, have something at the local library.
Yeah, and there is something to it that you should be pricing your library borrows higher than your sales on for example, Amazon. But again, if you use a distributor like Draft to Digital, when you are setting your prices, it will actually give you some guidance in the module when you're setting prices, and it'll tell you on average how much higher is the price for a book like this in the library and stuff like that. So you're not going in blind, and you'll get some support and help there in pricing it correctly. But yeah, library borrows does warrant higher pricing than sales on Amazon.
Yes, I know that now. I'll have to look at back what I did in Smashwords, but I'm not that worried that I'm somehow having the libraries drain my sales. It's not
no.
a huge frightening thing. And one of the things I have to admit that I really hadn't thought about with ISBN numbers, so they throw this around and they're, like I said, they're quite expensive. I mean, it's $125 for one. It's, I think, around $200 for 10, and then is it $300 or something for more than 100? It's something. It's probably a little more than that, but the prices change a little bit. But there's definitely some things, you want to buy them in bulk if you did decide to buy them. But don't forget, if you buy an ISBN number, you now need your own barcode. Because if you're doing a print book, you need to have your own ISBN number, and it's all kind of labeled in there together. So that's another expense. So, of course, if you go and buy a barcode plus an ISBN number, there's bundles for that. Or one barcode and 10 ISBN numbers. Now it's only $320 for 10 ISBNs and a whole barcode, which I don't know if that's going to work for all 10 ISBNs. So you see where this is suddenly becoming really expensive. I mean, I thought editing was bad, but you throw in ISBN numbers and suddenly it's getting kind of expensive.
Yeah, and well, I don't know. The more we talk about it, the more I just feel like I'm getting. Well, maybe it's confirmation bias. I don't know, but I feel like I'm just getting more and more points in. How do you say that? Points in the checkboard or whatever? I don't know. Yeah.
So you're ticking off your boxes that you've made the right decision to go for a free one, huh?
Yeah, because I just don't see the point. I as I said, I understand it if you're a big publishing house, but none of us are, right? I mean, we are like nimble and fast and flexible indie authors, so we don't need all that stuff.
I think so too, and I think after I finished reading dozens of articles about ISBN numbers and why you should have a free one or why you should go and buy them. And it's funny, most of the articles I read were really pushing you to go and buy ISBN numbers. Every argument kind of came down to like, well, it left me with this feeling. I'm like, yeah, I understand maybe that's, some people still have this perception that you're less formal, less, really well put together, less quality somehow if you are using a free ISBN number. But it's a lingering sense that is fading quickly. Just like how everyone used to say, oh, indie books, they're not as good as traditionally published books. I haven't heard anyone say that for years. So that's awesome. I think indie authors have finally shown and proven that we can write awesome book that publishers only wish they were smart enough to have gotten a chance to publish. But the same is true with ISBN numbers. This is something left over from the brick and mortar days when publishing houses were the gatekeepers to being able to publish. Now they're being used differently. You use them still to find books, but I mean, now to have a different one for every single format, I mean, goodness, they couldn't have just added a different code at the end, an A or a B or a numbered number that would say, hey, this is the audio version, this is the ebook version, this is the paperback version of the same book. It's kind of just clunky and archaic. And you know what? It's going to change or basically be left behind because that's just the way things are going these days. And I agree with you. I just don't care. Eventually, they're going to have to catch up with how awesome indie publishing is.
I guess we just found our conclusion there. So it's probably not worth buying any ISBN numbers. Next week, we are going to talk about feeling overwhelmed. So we hope to see you there.
If you like what you just heard, there's a few things you can do to support the AmWritingFantasy Podcast. Please tell a fellow author about the show and visit us at Apple Podcast and leave a rating and review. You can also join Autumn and Jesper on patreon.com/AmWritingFantasy. For as little as $1 a month, you'll get awesome rewards and keep the AmWritingFantasy Podcast going. Stay safe out there and see you next Monday.